Our other tutorials have been for intermediate or advanced felt makers, and we wanted to do something more simple so that even a beginner could attempt a piece to familiarise themselves with a gentle roller. So what I've got in front of me is, I think it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, just a few different shapes onto fabric. And we're going to roll it up, wet it down, roll it up, and show you how to use your gentle roller. The wool is wet on the top, so we're just going to flip it over and wet the back of the fabric.
Hello everyone, we lost power a few moments ago, so we may have missed a little bit of video footage. If we did, my apologies. If we didn't, I'm going to cut this out and you won't even know I mentioned it. Joni has wet down the surface, flipped it over and wet down the back. As you can see, I'm not rolling this too tight, I'm just making sure it stays consistently in a straight line. Got too much plastic around my end here, I didn't trim it off, so I'm just going to trim that. One of the mistakes we made on the tutorial video for the wall art, which you'll see if you watch that video, is that for the first few thousand rolls I didn't use my protective layer, and as a result the impact of the idle roller on the edge of the felting created a scalloping effect. And it was quite easy to rub out, but it is always a good idea to use that protective layer. And on the wall art video and our other videos, we've used these elastic pieces. This is quite thin material, there's not a lot of body to it, so I'm going to revert back to my rubber bands in this instance, because they have a smaller footprint. Something I'm setting the chooks outside. Rubber bands have a smaller footprint on the fabric, they're much thinner than the elastics, and I think they'll do a better job. I'm closing in on my 1,000 rolls, And I just want to point something out to you. This particular roll is not making a lot of contact with the idle roller on this leading edge here. Through most of the body, or through all of the rest of the body, we're making good contact. We're not on the leading edge. And the reason for that is there's obviously more wool in the centre of the garment or the scarf than on the edge. So when it's rolled up, the centre is fatter than the end. Now there's a easy fix for this, to try and get a little bit of work into this leading edge, and I'm going to show you a little trick. It's got 50 cycles to do. I'm just going to turn it off for a second. At this end, we're on the first pin, and at the far end we're on the first pin. Excuse the condition of that roller, but we can induce an angle by taking this end and putting it on the second or third pin. If we put it on the third pin, we've created a gap here, and we've closed the gap here. Now we'll put the back roller on the third pin. So I've created a gap at one end, but it's closed the gap at this end. Now it means the wool in the middle is now not getting any work, but I'm just going to run it for an extra few hundred revolutions, few hundred cycles in this condition, so that I can be confident that that leading edge, which was getting no work before, is now getting good contact with the idle rollers. And I'll just run for an extra maybe 300 or 400 revolutions, 300 or 400 cycles with this good contact on the leading edge, and then I'd be comfortable that I've evened out the felting across the roll. I've done my extra 400 rolls on the end to get a bit of action, a bit of work into the material, and for the benefit of the beginners who might be watching this, I'm taking it up from this end. So this end is on the outside of the roller. I'm just going to unravel it, bring my drive roller straight back to the end where I started, and take it up from this end, because this that was on the outside is now on the inside. And I'm going to roll it up, do another 1,000 rolls. If your felting methodology is that you typically lay onto bubble wrap or a bamboo blind or something similar, and you're used to rolling up in that and doing your rolling that way, we like to say, Joan and I, that the gentle roller is as nuanced as you are as a felt maker. And we prescribe a certain way of doing rolling, but that is not to say it is the only way of doing rolling. Now, I would not try this onto hard bubble wrap. And unfortunately I don't have wide bubble wrap, I've only got narrow bubble wrap. And it's a bit short, so bear with me on that one. But if you're used to rolling your material on bubble wrap and then rolling it manually, and you don't want to give that up just yet, and we may find that it's useful in some instances to do it this way. I've laid some bubble wrap on the table, and there's nothing to stop you rolling your felt. You still need a drive roller. Maybe I'll put something in the machine. There's nothing to stop you rolling your felt in plastic sheet as we have, and in bubble wrap. Now you can do any number of trials at your leisure and let us know the results, whether you think doing it this way gives you a better product, helps the felt quicker. It would be difficult to do with a thick scarf, but easy enough to do with a thin scarf as we have here. And I would caution against doing it this way for the first couple of thousand rolls. I still think the first few thousand rolls you're better off doing it on the naked idle roller, because this way is likely to induce a little bit of extra movement in the fabric and in the wool, and that might be fine. Now it's settled down, an extra bit of vegetation is a good thing, but we have settled down the wool with a couple of thousand rolls. Now there you have it. There is a roll of material taken up in bubble wrap. Now I would further recommend that, because we now have a much fatter roll than we had before, we can go to our elastic straps. Don't put them on too tightly, just a loose fit, just to hold the felt in place. My concern doing it this way, if I have any before we begin, is that your felt might go for a walk and migrate along the roller simply because it's loose. There's a couple of ways you can mitigate against that. One way, as we have here at the end, there's a lot of loose plastic. It's got nothing to do with the felt, it's just plastic leftovers. There's nothing stopping me from putting a tie tightly around that plastic, because it's not interfering with the felt in any way. And I'll put another one tightly around this end, and that, if there is going to be any walking, that'll certainly interfere with the felt's ability to walk sideways. So I'm going to give this a go. I don't mind doing an experiment. I have done this once before and the outcome was okay. Now, having a fat bundle leads into something that we haven't yet come across. We typically have had the idle roller on the first tooth, apart from that little experiment I showed you. It's now not possible to get the idle roller on the first tooth because the bundle is too big. That's why we have multiple teeth on the pivot hooks, as they're known, these white pivot hooks. And this one, if you can get your roller on the first tooth, all well and good. If you can't, you can use the second tooth. It's best to have the idle rollers slightly lower center than the drive roller. It just works out better. So I'm going to continue. I'm going to restore my default so it resets back to 65% speed. And I'm going to turn it on, and you may or may not pick that up. I'll bring the camera over. There you have it. A large bundle with bubble wrap interwoven between the felt material. I'll just turn the speed up. And you can see, because it's a bigger bundle, it's making those idle rollers dance quite a lot more. There's nothing wrong with them dancing. If you feel it's a bit too much, a bit too aggressive, you can always knock the speed back just marginally. And we're going to let that run. There's my tight rubber band, it's just holding the plastic. The one at the other end just holding the plastic on and just stopping the felt from migrating if it has a desire to migrate. So there's 3 tips in one little lesson. You can use your bubble wrap if you want to, or your bamboo matting, or whatever you're used to rolling or laying on. The height of the idle rollers will be dictated by the thickness of your bundle, whether you need the first tooth or the second tooth. And the main tip, don't be afraid to experiment. Try things, see what works for you, see what works for your type of felt. You may not be able to pick it up on the camera, but it's reasonably firm on the leading edge, and the second one in is reasonably firm. But as we get further down, they're a little bit softer. So I probably rolled the back too many times. The woolen fibres, which in some places have started to knit or have knitted quite well, that one's quite firm. It's very firm. That one's 50-50. We're going to get the woolen faces to wed together, and I'm going to show you another little fold trick. Welcome back. It's laid down here with the wool face up. It hasn't felted as well as I had hoped it would. I hoped by agitating the back I was doing it a favour, but I probably agitated the back a little bit too long and should have turned and focused on the front, because these thick woolen pieces, a number of them are soft on the top. Some have felted, but some are soft on the top, and I'm now going to concentrate on bringing the wool together and felting the wool together, and that should just about finish it off. The leading edge, as we found in other pieces, if you've watched the other videos, the leading edge of both ends has felted better than the middle section. The reason being the leading edge is on the outside of the roller and it gets a lot more work. And I'm going to take it up and I'm going to move the leading edge across, and I'm going to do that by folding 18 inches or so, 400 millimeters, 40 centimeters, depending on what currency you're using. I'm going to fold that over to create a fake leading edge, and I'll do 500 runs, then I'll fold it over a little bit further, create another fake leading edge, do another 500 runs. So I'll be migrating the part of the felt that is on the outside of the roller, will be migrating along, and I think it should be pretty well done. I soaked the woolen pieces simply by rubbing the soap under my hands, making my hands soapy, and gently rubbing onto the wool. I don't know how Joni does it, but it seemed like a good idea at the time. I'm going to try and flip this over because I want the wool side in contact with the idle rollers. We have the wool on the bottom, and as I said, I'm going to create an artificial end. And the way I do that is simply pull this back by 18 inches or so, 400 millimeters, doesn't matter. I find if you just rub your hands smoothly across the felt, it helps push air bubbles to the side and keeps it reasonably consistent. So I'll do 500 sets, I'll roll it out, I'll move the end up. I'll show you a little bit of footage of that as I'm doing it. And other than that, not much to see, but we're going to just move our false end by another 300 millimeters or thereabouts. Make sure you eliminate the creases and that folds. You have to have one crease. I haven't mentioned it in this video, so I'll do it again. Remember to lock your roller in place. Continue, start. I had it on 1,000 cycles, only want to do 500 cycles. We'll be back shortly.
I'm just soaping it down, just soaping the individual pieces, because we're going to put it in the fulling drum. Might just give it a bit more water. Usually wool will shrink in the direction it's laid, so it'll be interesting to see how this piece falls, because we've got pieces going in all sorts of different directions.
I'm keeping it in the top plastic sheet just for the first few hundred rumbles, just so those woolen pieces don't stick to each other. I'm not going to be too fussy about where I take it up. In the rumbler, it's set on 500, 250, quick check for tangling, don't expect any. Take it up to 500, then we'll take it out completely.
We've done our 500, just taking it out.
A couple of the individual shapes have just folded in on themselves and felted themselves together, so just pulling those apart, giving it a little massage.
But as I said before, the piece is going to pull in a direction that the fibres are laid on, and because there's a bit of a hodgepodge, it's going to be quite random.
I think we'll give it another 500.
There you go.
Because it's a cold day and it's in cold water.
Yeah.
And it's not going anywhere.
I was
in a hurry.
I was fulling a jacket the other day, and it just seemed to fall awfully fast. It almost got away from me, and because I was using the fulling bag for the first time, I thought that perhaps the bag had been of some influence, but maybe it was just the warm weather. It's felt it to itself, but it's no drama. See how the wool is kind of pulling. The wool is pulling there, and but it's also pulling here, so you get that kind of pleating Roush effect there. It's quite nice. And here it's a bit more, it's a bit flatter here because I put on these pieces which are sort of I call them shushy bits. They're very flat pieces, so it's heavy, so it's not pulling the fabric as much. So there's a bit of variation in the type of shapes that I've put on, and the way that it's affecting how the fabric roushes. So, and also it's probably why it's tending to stick to itself too, because there is a lot of wool there on the individual bits.
Alright, well we'll rumble it 500 more.
I'll just show you the back.
And then
before we go away. Yeah, so this is the back. You can see that.
Yeah, the colours come through.
Yeah, the colours come through, the fibres come through. Put it back in the fulling drum if you want. Come what may, this is the last moments in the rumble. It's awfully soaped. Yeah. Well, it has stuck less to itself this time. There you go. I am going to put it back in, just to be contrary. So, there you go, you can be as contrary as you like with your roller, or with a roller as well. Look at that. There we go. Save me a bit of work. It's rashing beautifully now. And not sticking to itself. I'm not going to do much next. I'm just going to just stretch out my shapes a little bit, and then I'm going to wash it, and it's a pretty grey day today, so I'll have to find some way of drying it. Hold on the line, and then I'll model it for you. So, did you want to maybe bring the camera in close, Philip? Just that extra 500 has brought about a lot more ruching. So, and you see how the shapes are pulling the fabric? So you can either leave it as pulled as it is, or perhaps try and define the shapes. It's just entirely up to you. Hi, welcome back. Just like to finish up this video by showing you the finished scarf. So here it is. It's shrunk about 40%, which is probably a little bit more than I would normally be shrinking a scarf to, but the Rumbo's done a really nice job, I think. We'll get a few close-up shots to show you some of the detail in the piece, but as you can probably see, it's dramatically smaller than what it was when we first began the piece.
If we overlay this finished photo on one of the original photos, you'll see how much it shrunk. It's a good 40% shrinkage, I think.
There you go, another video from the Gentle Roller Company.